We begin tonight with that breaking news, marking the third night of protests in Wauwatosa after the decision not to criminally charge Officer Joseph Mensah in the death of 17-year-old Alvin Cole.
And for the first time, we are hearing from Tosa's Police Chief Barry Weber since the arrest of Cole's mother and sisters. That happened last night. Though he didn't directly address what happened with the family. Instead, he talked about directives for law enforcement during protests.
If people are exhibiting behavior that is unlawful or disorderly, then we give them instructions numerous times to leave the area and follow the requirements of the emergency order and curfew.
Chief Weber says their primary goal is to keep everyone safe.
Our Bill Miston has been monitoring the development in Wauwatosa since Wednesday's decision.
And many are bracing for a weekend of protests. Bill, what's going on right now?
Good evening, guys. I'm standing at 70th and North right now, where there are a number of National Guard members and various law enforcement agencies that are from the west at Wauwatosa Avenue, heading east down North Avenue. As you can see, a line of Humvees here. Now, how we got to this point, you have to go back a bit, and this happening at around 7:30 or 7:45. That's when there were about 100 people or so still outside of Wauwatosa City Hall at Wauwatosa Avenue and North Avenue. Now, police had been making multiple announcements over the loudspeakers starting at 7 o'clock that the curfew was in effect, and that went on for about a half hour. That's when a number of law enforcement officers that were on to the south of North Avenue began moving forward towards those protesters that were lined up. Again, about 100, I would say, that were still there. They began pushing those protesters to the north, back towards Wauwatosa Avenue and North Avenue, when another group of law enforcement officers began coming from the west towards those protesters. And then at one point, there were pepper balls, tear gas canisters fired at those protesters, and those people began being pushed to the east down North Avenue. And so this is where we have ended up, right back here at North Avenue. We've seen several arrests being made, several being made out near the City Hall, as well as some people here along North Avenue. Now, this is a completely different feel. Many of the people that were still remaining out at City Hall were not the several hundred or maybe even 200 or so that were there at around 5 or 6 this evening. And those marches, those people outside of City Hall, they're saying that they're upset still with what happened here in Wauwatosa last night.
It means that we're this much closer to victory if you get this much opposition coming towards you.
State Rep David Bowen addressing roughly 150 or so protesters, men, women, black, white, mothers, fathers, children, families, all outside Wauwatosa City Hall Friday evening. In what is now a third night of protests since the February shooting death of 17-year-old Alvin Cole by a Wauwatosa police officer was ruled justified Wednesday.
I was just really upset about what happened last night and the way the police have treated the protesters for the last couple of nights.
Lynn Worley with the community group Tosa Together calls the curfew that's been put in place by the city an excuse for the actions of law enforcement over the past 2 nights, particularly in the arrest of Alvin Cole's mother and sisters Thursday night.
What happened last night is absolutely disgusting.
Friday afternoon, Cole family attorney Kimberly Motley saying 4 of Alvin Cole's family members, including his mother Tracy Cole, were pulled from their vehicle while peacefully protesting and arrested Thursday night. Police said marchers and vehicles were disrupting the peace, honking horns, blocking traffic, and driving erratically. Police saying as arrests were made, some refused to get out of their cars and had to be pulled out.
Go away! We don't want you!
These armored vehicles, once meant to protect soldiers from mines and war, are now driving the streets of Tosa.
My kids have not been afraid until now.
Exactly.
People like Worley at a loss for how the message of those images can help the community move forward for the better.
If we're going to say that we're a community that welcomes diversity, we're a community that welcomes different kinds of opinions, then we have to be able to work through this.
Now again, those protests that were outside City Hall, a number of those families, every one of those families, I would have to say, based on what I was seeing there, gone home. And then a lot younger people were there out at Wauwatosa Avenue and North Avenue outside City Hall. Again, law enforcement letting them be there for about an hour until they began pushing them towards the intersection and then firing pepper balls as well as tear gas canisters towards those protesters who have since, it seems, from where we are, again, we're far away from the column of where these National Guard vehicles and other police vehicles are, all the way farther east here down North Avenue. But from what we've been able to see is that a number of those protesters from where we are have been dispersed at this hour. For now, reporting live in Wauwatosa, Bill Miston, Fox 6 News.
Bill, one quick question. I know that you said that tear gas was deployed as well as those pepper balls that were sprayed, but law enforcement tweeting out tonight, Wauwatosa police saying that officers were actually struck with bottles, and that's why they deployed tear gas to stop the unlawful assembly. Did you, from your vantage point, see any objects being thrown at officers?
Yeah, there were some water bottles that I did see on the ground that were thrown, but I didn't see anything else other than water bottles that were at the intersection. We actually went back to that intersection to take a look at what was possibly thrown as well as what was deployed by police officers, and that's how I know that pepper balls or pepper spray as well as CS or tear gas was deployed on protesters, as well as saw some projectiles that were fired at protesters as well that had been given a number of calls to disperse over that hour. And to a point, there were some people who live close by to City Hall that were quite upset with this continuing on, even in the days after that the shooting was ruled justified by Milwaukee County District Attorney John Chisholm.
All right, Bill Miston reporting live for us tonight. Keeping an eye on things. Thank Bill.